Here's a little fable for you. Way back in school, it was a while ago now, I was told of the destruction of cats on our wildlife, the birds and the lizards and the fauna basically out in the bush. And the best thing you could do is eradicate the cats in Australia. So me being me, there was a couple of cats down the sheds, and I thought, well, I got to do the right thing. If I do the right thing, I get rid of the cats, save the planet and all that sort of crap. So I did. I eradicated the cats, and I thought, there you go, tree huggers, greenies, I've saved the planet. And it wasn't too long before we had an absolute explosion of the rats and the mice and the destruction that they were nesting. The feces, and they were tearing everything up. They were making an absolute pigsty of the sheds. It was a war zone just to get rid of the rats and the mice. It was absolutely disgusting. You think about how one mice, mices could have so many feces, so to speak. It was just an absolute mess. But it left me traumatised. It all started, okay, get rid of the cats, and then had an explosion of friggin' rats and mice. I said, live and let live. From now on, I just got to live and let live. Try the Buddha thing. And then, would you believe it? I eased up on the rabbits, and the rabbits had an absolute explosion. There was rabbits everywhere, and you say, okay, but they breed like rabbits. One minute you got one, then you got 6, and then you got 36 of the buggers. It's just, and they instead of digging holes down the paddock, well, even if they do, you walk down the paddock, next thing you know, you put your foot down a hole and you break your friggin' ankle, and you think, what the? There's a friggin' hole there. But they don't just do it in the middle of the paddock. They love to get underneath the buildings, destroy the foundations. Literally, they knock buildings down. I've still got a silo there that hasn't recovered. So then, okay, attitude change. Had to get rid of the rabbits. It was just absolutely crazy. In fact, we might have to have a talk to the rabbits again. And then just the other day, the starlings take over. And you say, well, what's so terrible about starlings? Well, they all get together. You get a couple of hundred of them together. They can't help themselves. They pass around lice like it's nobody's business. On top of that, they poop everywhere. But in the spring, summer, they get so excited, so randy, having all these birds living together, that they just want to fornicate. They just want to breed. Like rabbits, like the mice, they just want to breed. They get out of control. But instead of nesting in the old gum tree, they find little nooks and crannies in your roof, in your gutters, in your eaves, and they just fight their way in, and they just poop, spread their lies and shit and destroy everything, put holes in your roof. It's an absolute mess. So we had to have a talk to the starlings the other day. Absolutely bizarre. Soon as one thing starts to multiply to a point where they become destructive, it's sad, but you got to do something. You just got to do something about it. And you say, well, these are all introduced species. And you say, well, that's an interesting point. They are introduced species. The cats, the rats, the mice, even the starlings and the rabbits, they're all introduced here. All right, so you say, well, what about the native animals? Well, believe it or not, in Australia we have the longest dingo fence. All right, in the southeastern of Australia where I am, there's no dingoes. No dingoes whatsoever. All right, this fence is longer than the fence that the Tartarians put in to keep the Chinese out. The Great Wall of China. Okay, this fence is longer in Australia than the Great Wall of China. granted, it is a fence, but there's no dingoes. So we get plagues, we get huge mobs of kangaroos. And you say, well, what's so terrible about that? Okay, they eat the grass, and so you're trying to farm, and they eat the grass. In fact, there's a bit of a kid's fable, if you like, where it's like bull rush. You get a whole heap of grass, right? And then the kangaroos come along, and then the kangaroos breed because there's so much food to eat. And then when the kangaroos breed up, you get a whole heap of dingoes, right? This is a little story that they play. So the kangaroos, it's easy to catch the grass, and the grass turns into kangaroos, and then the kangaroos become food for the dingoes. But after a while, all the grasses die out, then all the kangaroos die out. Because there's too many of them and nothing to eat. And then the dingoes die out. Well, in Australia, if we get rid of the dingoes in the southeast corner, then we get plagues or these huge mobs of kangaroos. And again, they're an amazing animal. They can jump probably 8 foot from a standing start. Most incredible. Just jump straight up over a fence. But they won't do that. They will not do it unless you chase them, all right? They love to nudge and push through fences so little Joey can come along, all right? So instead of, even Joey could probably get over the fence if he wanted to, but no, they got to push and nuzzle right through the fences and just absolutely destroy the fences. So kangaroos, out of control, they just tear everything down. And what I'm trying to say with all this little fable, once you change the equilibrium of, well, I don't know about the universe, but if you change the equilibrium to the point where one thing starts to dominate, you have a cesspit. You have domination, you have destruction where things are out of control. And if you ask Bill Gates, he reckons there's too many people at the moment. That's why he's killing us off with all these COVID shots and all the rest of it. He's a very clever man, but he reckons the best idea to get rid of the population is to make them sterile and, give them blood clots and all the rest of it in the disguise of saving the planet from COVID. But anyway, I'm digressing. All I'm saying is this long-winded fable is it all started with 2 cats that I thought I was doing the right thing by getting rid of, and it turned everything into a war zone, into a cesspit. All right. So the point of this fable is once you change the equilibrium of things get out of control. There is, I think it's a Chinese saying, where absolute power, it corrupts absolutely. So every time you change something, it explodes in ways you can never imagine. When a butterfly bats its wings, who knows if you end up with a cyclone or a tornado on the other side of the planet. So I'm just saying that I won't be killing any cats, or at least I'll be keeping them in check from now on. Cheers, bye.